And it looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Let's give just a couple of minutes here, or a couple seconds, anyways, to let the stream breathe. Get the Facebook groups in here. Have a wonderful show with everybody here on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome in to another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I am your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst and looking super tired today. My good friend and colleague, Erick Trickel. Dude, what's going on, man? How are we doing today?
Doing good. A little bit sick, but for once, I'm not going to say I'm tired. I actually feel quite rested and everything. Got completely knocked on my butt with whatever this crud is that I have on Monday, and I've been slowly working my way back. At least I can breathe through my nose today. But I'm glad to be here. It's been an interesting week. It was really fun dealing with all the free agency stuff while being sick and in a completely dazed state due to cold medicine. I don't know how many times I've mentioned Caleb McGarry instead of Mike McGlinchey as the guy the Broncos have signed. Yeah, I know that kind of there was a joke in our group chat there for a while, but I mean, it's been a fun week. I mean, we got to see what the power of having rich owners can do. They went out there and they spent and spent and spent, and some of the moves were great. Some of the moves were fine. Some of the moves are okay. It's just you got a whole mixed bag of the moves, this week.
Well, speak the truth, man. There's one in particular that is really just a bad move. Although, given the direction of this team and given the head coach in place and Sean Payton, a lot of these moves checked out in the mentality that he really likes to portray on his football teams. Smash mouth, physical, let's get after it, buckle your chin straps, put your mouth guard in. We're going to go to work on the offensive and defensive line. And it's going to be a lot of fun today, guys. We're going to break down a lot of that for you. We're going to also, after we break down some of the contracts and what these players actually mean for this Broncos team, we're going to dive into the NFL draft a little bit and what it means for the Broncos moving forward. Obviously, there's still some needs that that Sean Payton and George Payton need to kind of dive through and address here in the NFL draft this upcoming season. So it's going to be a lot of fun, big-time gas for you guys. Michael Ronquillo jumping in here. Good evening, Lance and Erick on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos and buck them. Yes, sir. Thank you, Michael, for your support as always. And, dude, that Pat Surtain jersey, the black one you put on Twitter earlier today, flames, dude. That thing is so sick. I really want one of those. It was absolutely awesome to see that for you. Ernie Mays jumping in here as well. Hello, Lance and Erick. Go Broncos country only. And Ernie, always a pleasure to see you here on Dove Valley Deep Divers, as it is on all of the shows here on the Mile High Huddle podcast network. Mark Hoynock as well. Kevin Gray, David Youngkin, Mike S. in the house, Jess Hilborn as well. Thank you all, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's going to be a wonderful show today. Now, Erick, obviously, free agency is still ongoing. There's still some needs that need to be addressed, but let's go through some of the bigger moves that the Broncos made over the last couple of days. Obviously, starting off with your guy, the guy that you shouted out last Friday on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast, in former Baltimore Ravens offensive guard, former left guard, Ben Powers, signing on to a 4-year, $51.5 million deal with $28.5 million guaranteed, man. I didn't know a lot about him going into it, but after I've done a little bit of research, watched a little bit of tape, dude, this dude is the truth in terms of being a wrecking ball up front, man. I know that I really like him. I want you to speak on him, man. What does he bring to the table?
Well, I mean, last week, one of the things I said is if you're going to get if you're going to spend to get the best, you may as well go get the best. Ben Powers was the best offensive guard out there on the market. He's a top 5 offensive guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's a super explosive guy with super great mobility or athleticism or anything like that. He's fine there, but he's just such a clean technician, and he can just break down defenders just so consistently just with his technique. He's got plenty of power, can drop his anchor. He is such a good and powerful guard that has just not gotten mentioned because he's been on the Baltimore Ravens, who, despite having some quality on their offensive line over the last few years, they haven't gotten the attention that they have, as they were getting like 5-6 years ago, when they were consistently like always praised as one of the best units in the NFL. Pass protection is a little bit inconsistent and everything. And it was fortunate that he was playing, in front of Lamar Jackson, who could help cover up some of that. Well, Russell Wilson, despite my concerns about him, he has a history of being able to escape out of the pocket. And this is going to be a very run-heavy offense. That has been made clear by these moves. He is a significantly better run blocker. Well, Mike McGlinchey is also a significantly better run blocker. They went out there and they got a really good run blocking tight end. They got a fullback, a really good lead blocking fullback. So they really focused on making this team a power run offense, and Powers is just such an excellent fit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Phil McLaughlin jumping in here really fast saying, good evening, Lance, Eric, and Deacon Scott. What grade overall would you give our free agency picks? Go Broncos, MHH for life. Thank you, Phil, for joining us as per usual, and thank you for your support. We definitely appreciate that. Without jumping into Powers here, and just an overarching grade here, honestly, I would give probably an A-, B+, somewhere around in that particular area. The biggest thing to me is you went out and you smashed a lot of these needs. Obviously, you needed to get the right tackle in Mike McGlinchey. You needed to add to address the guard position where Dalton Reisner was standing. It looks like he's going to be moving on here soon as well. Center position is definitely a big need there. Readdressing the defensive line as well, whether it was getting Draymond Jones back or going and getting a piece like Zach Allen. Backup quarterback, upgrading over Brett Rippon, while a minor upgrade, at least Jarrett Stidham kind of does that. And addressing the linebacker room, bringing back Alex Singleton, I thought that was a very sneaky good pickup for the Broncos to bring him back. So to me, probably a B+ is where I'd rank that. I wish that they would have been able to bring back Draymond Jones just to keep some continuity there. But overall, I like what the Broncos have done. Eric, what do you think?
I'm not too far behind you. I am a little bit lower. I would go with a B. I don't like Jarrett Stidham at all. I don't like he's here for the year at least. Like, I would have liked to see somebody else. Like, honestly, not that there was much out there. He's just so uninspiring to me, even as a backup quarterback. I know there's been a lot of love for Samaj Perine, and I like him. I would like to see somebody that I think could be a little bit more of that top running back, because there is a reasonable possibility that Javonte Williams doesn't play this year. He's expected to miss at least the first month and a half or so. I would like to see somebody that can bring a little bit more, as that top guy than Perine. I like him, but he is very much a number 2 guy for me. And then I think that this is probably the one that's going to get the most hate. I like Mike McGlinchey. He wasn't the top right tackle to me on the market, and it was not a huge, but a slight overpay for him. And it's just my biggest issue is that his injury history. We've gone down that road multiple times before. I'm just a little, cautious of that. So that bothers me a little bit. Zach Allen was fine. I would have preferred keeping Draymond Jones. Their year one cash flow is pretty similar, and I've seen people hyping up that Denver could match what Draymond Jones got. They could have easily. They just didn't want to. So they got Draymond Jones, or they got Zach Allen for a little bit cheaper on the year one cash. Yeah. And bringing Alex Singleton back was great. Still a few moves out there that I would like to see. Getting that starting center, adding another defensive lineman. So there's still moves for it, but I'd give them overall, as I said, a B.
I guess the one big move that I don't like the most is Stidham, obviously. There were guys out there. Jacoby Brissett is probably a better option there. Gardner Minshew is a guy that I know a lot of Broncos fans have really kind of liked a lot. And as Willard Axtell comes in here and says, Mike McGlinchey is a C- player. I don't know that I would go that low, but I want to pivot to him specifically because, like you said, this is a slight overpay. We got him back in here for 5 years, $87.5 million, $50 million guaranteed. The signing bonus there, though, is what really makes this a more palatable acquisition for the Broncos, because what they've done is they've taken that signing bonus, I believe it was $25 million or something like that. They dropped that first year cap number all the way down to like $5.75 million in this first season. So you're getting him, sure, there's injury concerns there, but you're getting him at a cheaper number for a starting a quality starting right tackle at the position, and he fits. He may not be the best road grading right tackle out there. He's fleet of foot. He moves around pretty well. He's a little bit stiff and kind of upright, but for the most part, he brings that physicality and that attitude that you like to see from Sean Payton offensive lines. Look at Andrews Pete who played guard. Who's the right Ryan Ramczyk, another guy like that, a little bit stiffer in the hips, but brings a lot of power, brings that bully mentality. They're definitely not the same player, but McGlinchey at least fits that mold of a guy that likes to go out there and he likes to knock your teeth down your throat. I like the signing, even though I think that they probably could have went in a different direction. I would have preferred to see Jawan Taylor in here, maybe even Caleb McGarry, who's even more of that physical player. But McGlinchey is one that I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a C- player. I'd say he's a B player getting paid as an A- player.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
not terrible. And it's a deal that you can get out of after 3 years. Again, my biggest issue is the amount of time that he's missed. Just going back to that well of the injured players that you're giving a little bit more to. That's a little bit of a bothersome to me. I want to grab a couple comments real quick saying, first one from Michael Davis saying, Eric, we won 5 games last year, not 10. Okay. Not sure where that's coming from. I know what Denver did last year. It doesn't matter to me at this point because the expectations are, again, different. We're not talking about last year. It's what can this team do to get better and what have they done to get better, and we are evaluating that. And then another question here from Dennis Woods. Would you please explain how rich owners help the player acquisitions considering the cap? Is it helpful when structuring contracts with high signing bonuses? So I've mentioned this a couple times before, and the biggest thing is when you have rich owners is, okay, a lot of complicated stuff in here. Every team gets an X amount of money from the NFL that goes towards contracts and stuff like that. With Pat pulling out and the trust sitting there and overseeing it, Denver has had to rely on those funds to be their essentially sole ability or sole way to bring players in. So they were really limited on cash. And when you're limited on cash, you have to be careful with how you structure contracts. And you also have to be careful with length as well. Because when you sign a player to a contract, all of the money in the contract goes into escrow. And so if you sign a player, say the funds that you have is $300 million, well, you sign a player to a 5-year deal that's for $100 million. All that $100 million is now gone of that cash that you have. So now you're down to $200 million. Still, not a big deal, but you have to save a lot more of the cash for players that you draft and everything. Well, when you get a rich owner in, like the Broncos now do, they can sit there and they can influx cash in and sit there and not have to rely on just what their portion from the NFL. So you can be a little bit more strategic with the structure of contracts. You can go a little bit longer with contracts. You can be a little bit more aggressive with bonuses, and you can offset that a little bit with the base salaries of them while still giving a solid base salary, really good base salary. And that's kind of what we've seen with the Broncos contracts this year. So we're just seeing the effects of having rich owners working compared to having to rely on the funds that were just gifted from the NFL, essentially.
Yeah, and another thing, the second part of your contract here, like I kind of explained with the Mike McGlinchey thing is, so if you want to be able to lure a free agent, the best way to do that is to hand him a bunch of money up front, signing bonuses. So what happens with the signing bonuses, say we were going to sign Mike McGlinchey, again, 5 years, $87.5 million with $50 million guaranteed. Half of that comes in a signing bonus. So he's going to sign a $25 million signing bonus. So that signing bonus now prorates over the 5 years of that contract, making the cap hit for that particular money only $5 million against the salary cap. So the first year, what you're trying to do is you're saying, we want to bring in a high quality free agent player like a Mike McGlinchey, and we're going to try to give him as much money as we possibly can in terms of a signing bonus, but we're only going to pay him $750,000 on for the season in terms of salary. That way, what you're doing is you've taken $5 million plus the $750,000 worth of salary, making his salary cap hit in year one $5.75 million, which is what is the case with Mike McGlinchey. Next season, then you've got the salary portion of it for the next 5 years at what was it? I don't remember what the average per year basis was. It's like 16.75 or 17, something like that. So his next year salary is 17.5 plus the 5 million, or however they structure the contract out all the way throughout the rest of the year. It's very complicated. The more that you get into it, the more you learn about it, the easier it is to comprehend. I don't know the full structure of the Mike McGlinchey deal, but that's just kind of a basic breakdown of how that actually works. Having richer owners that have a lot of cash helps you sign free agents in a different way. It's a big way that the Rams are able to do what they're able to do, trading first round picks for players and then signing them to extensions to lower their cap hit. And then like the Saints, where what they do is they restructure stuff, give them signing bonuses, put extra void years on the edge of their deals and then lower their salary cap hits to restructure players and still be able to bring in free agents. It's a very complicated process.
And going back to Mike McGlinchey, Michael Davis came in asking, he was the number one rated run blocking tackle according to PFF. No, he was number 2 in 2020. Mm-hmm. Last year, he was, hold on, let me pull it up. Caleb McGarry was number 2 last year. Mike McGlinchey was 21st in run blocking last year.
Yeah, Scott got it pulled up right here.
Out of 57. Yeah. Like, so it's
sorry, Scott pulled it up here. You're not seeing the stream. You're looking at your numbers here. McGlinchey was 54th last year in run blocking by Pro Football Focus. Chris Lindstrom was number 1. McGarry was number 2 offensive tackle behind Trent Williams, who was number 4 overall. Sorry about that.
That is among all offensive linemen. I'm looking at offensive tackles that played 50% of 1,324 snaps. So it's a lot more condensed down. So of tackles who saw a decent amount of time, he was 21st out of 56 or whatever it was I said.
Gary Palmer jumping in here with a $10 super chat. Hi, Lance, Eric, and Scott. Besides center, what other positions do we need to dress? Go Broncos, #MHH for life, and #Buckham. A handful. The center is the number one thing that I have. Edge depth is another big one to me. I think that's a big need for this team. Actually, let me flip my notes over here. Speed at the wide receiver position. Obviously, there's some rumors going around about Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy potentially being on their way out. KJ Hamler has not been able to show reliability to stay on the field or reliability on the field in terms of being a pass catcher and reliable receiver there. So speed wide receiver is a big one. Interior defensive line and safety are the big ones that I have. Eric, what do you think?
I mean, when I look at what you still have left to dress is you also have those 5 draft picks. A lot of those things that you still need, you can still look at getting in the draft because it's not like the speed wide receiver. It's not an absolute must. You still have KJ Hamler, and though he has had injury issues and everything, he still brings that speed to the table, and you're trying to bet on him being healthy and out there on the field. So you can, if somebody falls to you that you like in the draft, there you go. You don't have to go out there and spend to get another guy. You need another defensive lineman. This isn't a great defensive line draft class, so you need another defensive lineman. And Calais Campbell is a guy that I would really like to see Denver brought in, even though he's 57,000 years old. He can still play. He still had a really good year last year, and people aren't realizing just how good it was. I mean, after a somewhat down year in 2020 and 2021, his play jumped back up. He had 6 sacks. He had 35 pressures. He did miss eight tackles, but he played over 500 snaps. He's had over 11,000 snaps played in his career. He brings plenty of experience. And the Broncos defensive line is still pretty young. They can use somebody with that voice and that leadership on the defensive line, something that we don't really have. So I would like to see Campbell. He's a guy that almost signed with the Broncos back in 2017 when Vance Joseph was the head coach back then. He ended up choosing going to Jacksonville for a little bit more money, but mostly because that's where his wife wanted to go. He's from the area, and he's mentioned before about interest about returning home. So that is one guy on the defensive line I'd like to see, because you got to replace Deshaun Williams. Another option I think out there on the defensive line is Poona Ford. I mean, if you're looking at replacing Deshaun Williams specifically with the role and everything, obviously it'd be more of a bigger deal if you were seeing the same scheme, but there's a slight difference between Evero and what Vance Joseph is bringing. But Poona Ford is a really strong run defender, offers up a little bit more as a pass rusher than we saw out of Deshaun Williams. And I don't think either one of them would be overly expensive to bring in on the defensive line. One is because Poona Ford, despite being solid as a pass rusher, he's not great. He is very much a run defender first. And then Calais Campbell, with his age, I just don't think that he'd be asking for a bunch of money still at this point in his career.
I don't disagree with you on that one. Lawrence Rivera jumping in here saying, "What's up, guys? Can I bring in correlations of spending the most money doesn't mean the best team?" No, it doesn't. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars last season, they have turned it around. They were a bad team before. They spent a whole lot of money and snuck their way into the playoffs. They've done that for several years now and have not figured out a way to field the best team. Coaching helps, bringing in quality players helps, but I mean, spending money doesn't mean that you're going to be the best team by any stretch of the imagination. This isn't Major League Baseball. So thank you for the stars on that, Lawrence. We appreciate that. I want to go back to Calais Campbell really fast because there was something that was actually kind of funny. Listening to 104.3 The Fan in Denver the other day, it was actually kind of tweeted out as well. Derek Wolfe, former Broncos player, former teammate of Calais Campbell in Baltimore there for a little while, actually did on the air reach out to Vance Joseph, who Derek Wolfe played under in Denver there for a couple of seasons. And then knowing his connection with Calais Campbell, actually on the air reached out to Vance Joseph saying, hey, Calais Campbell's a dog. You need to go and bring him in. He's a great veteran defensive player, and he still can play. He can get after it. And Vance Joseph responded to him on the air. He's like, oh, really? You got his contact information? Yeah, sure. Here you go. So he actually connected Calais Campbell and Vance Joseph. So maybe we'll see if that is actually a connection that we see come down the pike here in just a little while with the Broncos, looking for another veteran defender to add to that defensive line. I want to go to Zach Allen here. Speaking of the defensive line, 3 years, $47.75 million on the deal, $32.5 million guaranteed. So more or less a 2-year deal, about $16 million or so. A quality player, very tough. One of those guys that's stronger in the running game than Draymond Jones does. Not quite the elite interior pass rusher, Eric. I know how high you are on Draymond Jones, but I want you to kind of give an overview on Zach Allen more so than I can.
Well, I mean, he's another one of those guys that has struggled to stay out there on the field a little bit. But I mean, that's not a super big deal because Draymond Jones. I mean, he was a guy that injuries were the big concern with him. Zach Allen is a little bit of a better run defender, but he's a little bit worse of it and of a pass rusher. And everybody points to what he did in this last season, and he had some good numbers getting after the quarterback last year. Like, there's no denying that. He picked up 6 sacks and 35 pressures, got 15 hits on it. It was a really good season. The thing is that when they came, what stands out to me is when they came. He started the season off with 9 pressures, no sacks though, facing off against what ended up being one of the best offensive lines last year against the Kansas City Chiefs. And a line that ended up being somewhat underrated in the Las Vegas Raiders. He ended up picking up another 5 against the Los Angeles Chargers, who had another, a pretty not great but solid offensive line. And why those teams? I mean, who do you face 6 times a year? You face the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers. So he had shown that he can get after the quarterback against these guys, and a lot of these guys that he's going to be going against this year. And one part of getting after the quarterback is knowing who you're going against, knowing their tendencies and what you can do to counter them. And having the track record of success against these guys can help him, bring over their tendencies of what his knowledge of them and how to beat them and everything, and help see, that translate over to this season.
I don't disagree with that. I think one of the big things though is that it's just the shift in mentality. Like I kind of touched on it just a little bit ago. The physicality, bring the more physical presence and dominate in the trenches, specifically in the running game. And not to say that Draymond Jones was a bad run defender, but that was easily the one area of weakness that he had in his overall skill set. He was more apt to get upfield than contain his gap. And when he did try to contain his gap, he got pushed off the ball. Zach Allen was a high-quality run defender, and he's just one of those guys that brings that, I'm going to punch you in your face, and then I'm going to punch you in your face again, and I'm going to punch you in your face again, and after I'm done doing it, I'm going to punch you in the face again. Like, he's a guy that just brings that gritty lunch pail mentality that I'm not going to lose. I'm going to win. I'm going to give the maximum effort, the most that I possibly can. And he's very happy to be here. He loves Vance Joseph. He loves playing in that system. It fits him very well. And to me, the one thing that another thing that I want to bring to it is the familiarity with the system, the familiarity with the player, between the player and the coach. That to me plays a little bit of a preference level, and why the Broncos went in the direction of Zach Allen over Draymond Jones. Eric, what do you think on that?
Well, I mean, coach preference is a well-known thing. I mean, we see coaches all the time. I mean, the fullback that we signed, why did we bring him in? And why did he want to come here? Sean Payton. Mm-hmm. Like, we see it all the time on both sides of the ball. We see guys go get them. Where did Deshaun Williams end up at? With the Panthers. Who's their defensive coordinator?
Ejiro Evero.
So we see this all the time. I mean, there was a guy who for a few years when Vic Fangio left the 49ers to go to the Bears, he followed Fangio from the 49ers to the Bears. We see it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I think if that is what you're basing your decision off of, not the best thing in my opinion.
I don't disagree.
I think the difference here is those points that you got to. Draymond Jones, he did have his issues against the run. He wasn't terrible like a lot of people make it out to be. He was solid. He was about average. But the bigger thing with him was that it was very boom or bust with Draymond Jones. He either shot the gap and made the play, or he got blown off the line. Zach Allen is a little bit more consistent, even if he's not the one making the play. He's a little bit more physical up front, not a guy who wants to kind of finesse his way getting after the quarterback, but a guy who's going to go through the offensive lineman to get after the quarterback.
Yep.
So I think that style is a good reason for it. It's just my issue goes back to again is he's got that 1 year of really good pass rush production, and interior pass rush is something that is so important in the AFC West and in the NFL in general. And you do take a significant hit there. And now you got to sit there and try to figure out something with your pass rush because Randy Gregory's health is a concern staying out there on the field with him, staying out there on the field with Baron Browning. DJ Jones is a fine for pass rusher for what he is. So, again, goes back to getting somebody else. Calais Campbell, there you go. That's a guy that can help balance there. Lawrence Rivera comes in with some stars saying, who's drinking green beers tonight? Not me. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like green beers. I don't like food green.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Michael Ronquillo jumped in here as well and said happy St. Patrick's Day. First things first, to address Lawrence here, who's drinking green beers tonight. I don't have green food dye. But I will be partaking at least in a little bit of some Irish whiskey, corned beef and cabbage. We've got Rubens on deck as well. So we're celebrating in our own special way. I'm not Irish, but I enjoy the holiday and just to have some fun and join in the festivities and whatnot. But the biggest thing, guys, is whatever you guys are doing, please, folks, find designated drivers, find whatever you have to do to make sure you guys drink responsibly, get home safe. Do not get yourself in any kind of trouble. Always safety first, especially when it comes to holidays like today, which is pretty much how this holiday goes down with the party celebration and whatnot. So please make sure you guys are safe tonight. Back to football here.
Real quick, Daryl coming in.
Whoa.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate that so much. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for your support, man. That means a lot to us. So thank you so much. I hope you're having a wonderful Friday evening. If you're celebrating St. Patrick's Day, I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. And this is for everybody in the chat. Those of you out there celebrating St. Patrick's Day, please don't drink and drive and be smart. Please, stay safe. Have your fun, but just stay safe, guys.
Yeah, Daryl, thank you so much, man. From the bottom of my heart, from both of us here at DVDD and at milehighhuddle.com. Thank you for your support, man. That's awesome. Very much appreciated. We definitely appreciate that.
And that's your first Superman. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Dude, you're awesome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Off the top rope here. First super chat, $50, man. Awesome. Thank you so much. I want to go back to the chat here really fast because I want to move the conversation forward a little bit just to get back to football. KB, Kenny Booker, what's up, my dude? Had a lot of fun hanging out with him a couple of years ago. And thank you for everything you're doing, helping serve the country. I can't remember. I think you're Army. Army or Air Force. Regardless, is in the military. Thank you for everything you're doing, KB. We appreciate you, man. What's up, fellas? How happy were you with the Samaje Perine signing? Did you have another running back that you preferred the Broncos signed? Eric kind of gave some thoughts. I didn't get a chance to rebuttal on that, but I want to do that here really fast. In terms of just the Perine signing, I liked it, honestly. 400 total touches at the NFL level, so not a whole lot of wear on the tires, but a big body back, 5'11", 235 pounds or somewhere around that level with some decent speed to him. One of those guys is just going to, again, we're back to the physicality aspect of the Sean Payton offense and the mentality he's bringing to this team. I'm willing to knock you in your face and punch you in the guts and kick your teeth down your throat, and then we're going to do it again. over and over again. He's a solid pass protecting back. He can catch the football out of the backfield. He's not a guy that's going to make you like shake and bake missed tackles out in the open field, but he's going to put his shoulder into your chest and he's going to run your ass over. That's what I like about this, because it brings it all full circle. You've got Ben Powers with the physicality, Mike McGlinchey with the physicality, Chris Manhurst, the tight end that the Broncos signed from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He brings the mentality. He brings that physicality. Samaje Perine is another player that just brings that toughness to this team that we've been missing since CJ Anderson was running the football there for underneath Peyton Manning. I like the signing, although I do wish they would have gone in a different direction just to give you a little bit more dynamic ability. Alexander Madison was the guy that I was very intrigued by in the free agency aspect. And I caught him in the middle of a drink again. 2 weeks in a row. I'm good at this.
Oh, that was my fault. I knew you were closing in. I just thought I had a second more. Throat started to get a little dry. I like Samaj Perine. Speed should never be mentioned with his name. Ever. He doesn't have it. He has to run you over because he won't outrun you. I will be very curious to see how many 10-plus yard runs he has at the end of the season. He's a big physical back. He's a fullback. Like, he's a fullback playing running back, essentially.
Yeah.
Really good blocker, physical guy, solid, reliable pass catcher. He can do a little bit of everything, but he's not that home run getter, so I don't like using that do-it-all term for the running back. That's a guy who I think could be a home run hitter there. But, I mean, just can bring a little bit to the table. I would prefer the nerd. Give me the nerd all day.
Jamal Williams?
Jamal Williams, like on the contract he got, like everything. Just give me Jamal Williams, man. We need some more nerds representing it. The last real like open nerd that we had here in Denver was probably Robert Ayers, who was really huge into Pokemon. I remember talking with him a lot about Pokemon on Twitter. Man, I can't think of another real big nerd we've had since then. Somebody needs to represent.
Well, but so there was one nerd, and I don't necessarily want to call him a nerd, but he was a guy that, Russell Wilson, Scott jumping in here, Russell Wilson is not a nerd. He's a dork. There's a difference. Like, being a nerd and being a dork is something. He's corny. That's Russell Wilson's corny as all hell. But, like, to me, like, the bigger nerd, there was a couple of them. Who was the defensive lineman that they had? I want to go to Calvin Anderson, because Calvin Anderson was actually kind of a nerd there as well. There was a defensive lineman they had. It wasn't Jeremiah Tauchu. It was a street free agent they brought in that was like super into like figuring out Rubik's cubes, was a dynamic chess player.
That's a geek.
Oh, so you're getting into the geek part of that. So nerds, geeks, and cornballs. By the way, this is the hard-hitting analysis we bring on Dove Valley Deep Divers. So if you guys are new here, please stick around, because it's going to get even better, hopefully. I can't really think of like a true geek that
I guess Vaughn had some nerd in him, yeah. Like he wasn't like a big nerd. Like he was a little weird. Like wanted a chicken farm. Like that's a little weird.
I think he was more cornball than nerd, though. Yeah, like more cornball than nerd.
Anyways,
all right, guys. So moving forward, I like this Samaje Perine conversation that we had there. I like the contract. I like bringing him in. I'm with you though, Jamal Williams, with what he was able to do, putting the ball into the end zone for the Detroit Lions this last season. I believe he rushed for the same amount of touchdowns as Russell Wilson threw for. He had 16 rushing touchdowns, if I remember correctly. It might have been 15, but I know that it was up there. At one point, Jamal Williams had more rushing touchdowns than Russell Wilson had passing touchdowns, which at that late in the season is something you don't want to see. For running backs, though,
he had more.
He had more. So did he have 17 rushing touchdowns? My God, that dude's just a monster. And he likes Pokemon, and he likes Naruto. He's an anime geek. Regardless, let's not get back into that. Man, I lost my train of thought. I wanted to talk about more about Perine and other running backs, but it doesn't really matter. Let's move to some of these lower level signings here. Obviously, you've got there's three of them here. Chris Manhertz, a tight end that we've talked about just a little bit, bringing the physicality as a run blocker, solid as a pass protector as well. Former tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. In fact, it's kind of interesting to know that he never put football pads on until he was 22 years old. Finally figured out that the big physicality that he had, learned how to play football by playing Madden. To understand concepts and stuff like that. Got to try out there for a little while. Was a priority signing for Urban Meyer down in Jacksonville for a couple seasons. 2 years for $6 million, $3.3 million guaranteed. Obviously, dude, this is the blocking tight end that the Broncos have needed for a long time now. Upgrade over Eric Tomlinson, upgrade over Eric Saubert, and sneaky as a pass catcher. Eric, what do you have on Chris Manhertz for us?
I mean, when I was looking through tight ends, I wasn't sure if Denver would go here in free agency with how strong the draft is, but it makes sense because tight end is one of the positions that it's going to take a few years to get it to really translate in the NFL because of how much you have to pick up. Because tight ends are probably, outside of quarterbacks, are probably one of the top two hardest positions to transition into the NFL because of everything. They have to know all the blocking calls, they have to know the receiving stuff, they have to know everything. Manhertz was one of the free agent tight ends that I really had my eye on because of his ability as a blocker. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a great option if you're going to more of a 12 personnel, as it sounds like that Denver will be doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to more 12 personnel, I mean, he's the ideal guy to have opposite Greg Dulcich, who still has a lot to learn as a blocker, really good receiving ability. Well, now you have your blocker, and so you can use them in a versatile way and really get them to work well together. So he's one of the guys I like a lot. And Michael Burton, too, talk about other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a guy that he upgrades the fullback position significantly.
Yes.
He's a great special teamers that should help out a lot there as well. I mean, again, he's a physical guy. He wants to go out there. He wants to put people on the ground, has the right attitude, like just fits this whole thing that you've mentioned multiple times tonight of Sean Payton wanting to get more physical and mean and nasty up front a little bit.
Yeah. Michael Burton, by the way, former fullback he actually played with Sean Payton there for a while. So there's a connection there. He was a former Kansas City Chief this last season. So he has a Super Bowl ring. So kind of understands that. Not that he actually was a major contributor there, except for special teams. So to me, that's a big thing. Special teams contributions is another thing with Manhertz and with Burton, to both of those guys. And our third guy here, Tremont Smith, former cornerback for the Houston Texans, 2 years, $5.5 million, no guaranteed money, by the way. But not only is a cornerback, he's a slot cornerback that played fairly well for a struggling Houston Texans defense this last season. But you know what? This dude knows how to return the football. He's one hell of a punt returner. And guess what, guys? My dude, Montreal Washington, I was very excited about him, but I continued to lower and lessen my expectations for this guy. Tremont Smith is going to come in and blow him out of the water, man. Eric, have you got a chance to watch him in terms of playing on the defensive side of the football, or is most of your exposure to him as a returner?
Neither. I haven't really watched a whole lot of him. So pulling up his stuff on Pro Football Focus a little bit. Not overly experienced on the defensive side of the ball. Only played 3 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Starting 2 of them coming in for an injury there in week 14. Has just under 500 snaps total. Looks like he's been fine there. Special teams is where he has done the most. And he's a solid returner. I mean, he's a guy who, at the very least, you're getting yourself an upgrade over Montreal Washington, who looked completely out of place as the returner last year.
Yeah, Montreal Washington's going to be lucky to make the practice squad this next season, and that's a hard pill for me to swallow, because after going in and diving through his tape, I saw a lot of the things that you like to see. Some jitterbug aspect, decent decision making. He's good with the ball in his hands, makes a lot of people miss, at least at the Samford level, not Stanford, SAMFORD, Samford level. I liked a lot of what he could bring, and I was very intrigued by him. So I was really excited of what he brought to the table. But you could tell that at the NFL level, he's just not a dude. Like, he doesn't have the decision-making aspect of it. He doesn't have the athleticism aspect of it. He doesn't have the ball security aspect of it. Tremont Smith, I watched some punt returns from him. He does a pretty good job catching the ball. He's fluid enough with his lower half. He does a good job, finding some creases, and he has the ability to take the football to the house. He has 2 interceptions off of Dak Prescott this last season in the slot. I believe one of them went for a touchdown. There's some tape of him back at Central Arkansas of him taking the football to the house as a punt returner. So very excited about him, bringing him in as a low-cost, high-upside player, no guaranteed money. You need to upgrade over Essang Bassi, who looks like he's going to be moving forward. So Tremont Smith, I'm intrigued by this young man. Eric, I want to flip the script here. Let's go back to the NFL draft here, and I want you to kind of break down a little bit. Obviously, the offensive line has been the big focus in free agency this season. Obviously, Mike McGlinchey, Ben Powers as well. But the one big need that I still see, I think it's arguably the biggest need that this team has, is upgrading the center position over Lloyd Cushenberry, who's been an abject disaster ever since he was drafted back in 2020, 2019, whatever the hell year it was. It's been bad. And you missed out on Ethan Pocic. You missed out on Austin Blythe, who retired this last season. You've got to find an upgrade, man. Who are the guys you're looking at? The Broncos picked 67 and 68 in the 3rd round this season here in April. Who are you looking at that could potentially shine as a guy that you can plug in and play as a starter right away? Because you're going to need that if you don't find a free agent.
I mean, there's still a few free agents out there that I think are worth looking at. Ben Jones being one of them, just a guy for that veteran presence that you can bring in, and that you look at drafting somebody as well to try to develop, or continue trying to develop Luke Wattenberg, who didn't show a whole lot of promise last year. But in terms of the draft, the guys I'm looking at, I think John Michael Schmitz will be drafted in somewhere in the 2nd round. I think it'll be, unless Denver, makes a trade to get up earlier, either trading a player to get getting a higher draft pick, or trading some of the draft picks they have, and a player, however they do it. Out with what they have now, I think Luke Whippler or Joe Tippmann make a lot of sense for the Broncos, except for Joe Tippmann being 6'6". Obviously, that might ruffle some feathers with Russell Wilson. I'm not sure how that will be. I know that was an issue last year with, between Graham Glasgow and Lloyd Cushenberry with their height difference. But I think that those guys either one of those would be a really good pick there at 67, 68 for them. To finish up this rebuild that they're kind of doing on their offensive line. Jelly comes in with $1.99, asking, does Jalen Carter fall? Does draft priority shift? First of all, thank you, Jelly, for the donation. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Jelly.
So we've seen players, with the top 5 status, top 3 status, have some issues come up during the pre-draft process. Laramie Tunsil had the whole gas mask thing going way back. Warren Sharp had some stuff coming out as college. I don't see Jalen Carter's falling super far. Maybe outside of the top 10. I don't think he falls out of the top 15. The biggest questions now, he seems to handle everything with the misdemeanor charges that were filed against him. There's still a lot of maturity questions, and there were maturity questions that teams knew about. They weren't it's not like maturity questions didn't come out of nowhere. He's had maturity questions going back to over a year ago. And it's just been a consistent thing with him, is does he have the maturity? Well, teams were still viewing him as a top 3 guy. There were still teams that were willing to take him in the top 5. If he falls a little bit, they're still going to look at him and be like, we're going to take a shot here. We're going to try and get you to realize that, hey, this is the NFL. You got to mature. We're going to put the right guys around you to try to help you mature. But I think I can't remember who it was that said it, but there's a former coach that used to have a saying that was, when you make money in the NFL, it just reaffirms who you are. And so that's the big concern with Jalen Carter. If he gets paid, is he just going to continue to be this not overly excited to work defensive lineman that's just kind of going to mail it in every single day during practice, and then go out there and try to rely on his God-given talents to just win on Sundays, kind of like he did in college? So that's kind of the bounce I have to do. I don't think that he falls far enough for Denver, though.
No, he's not going to fall that far. This is not a Lyle Collins is the one that have heard a lot of people say like, oh, he's a first round pick that was involved in a big murder charge and yada yada yada. No, this is not the same thing. He was in a racing deal. It was a misdemeanor thing, and he's not being questioned on murder charges here, guys. He already pled no contest to the deal, paid $1,000 fine. He's got 8 months worth of unsupervised probation. He's going to continue on living his life. Like Lyle Collins, that whole thing was they were asking his stepdad about a murder investigation, and they were like, "Is he potentially involved?" Like that was where that Lyle Collins thing went into the things. That's not the same situation here. Go ahead, go finish.
With Lyle Collins, they've made it clear from the start he was never a suspect in it. They just wanted to talk to him and question about other things, but still, that just speaks to still a little bit different when you're talking about murder and DUI. I mean, if he was directly responsible for the crash, that's different. I have a whole different view about everything with this that I'm not going to get into, but in the NFL aspect of it, I just don't see him falling that far. David Cromwell comes in with a $2 donation. Thank you, David, for joining us. Says thoughts Dave. On Tyler Scott as an option at 67-68. Yeah, I'd love it. Mm-hmm. Like if you're really not sold on KJ Hamler or Denver moves KJ Hamler because he's kind of getting overshadowed a little bit, his name has been floating out there as well. As a potential trade piece, I think he's a great option. I really like Tyler Scott. I would absolutely love to see him work in this offense.
I do as well, because to me that's like the Deveray Henderson mold. He's a little bit bigger than Deveray Henderson, and I haven't really gotten a chance to break down Tyler Scott yet. What I do know of the guy and what I have seen, straight line speed. This dude can take the top off. He's just incredibly explosive running vertically. So to me, if you're looking for that speed option, a guy who can line up on the boundary, line up at the slot, and just let him go to work, moving vertically, running the deep overs, the deep posts, and stuff like that, Tyler Scott makes a lot of sense for this offense. Jerry Jeudy, well, I think that Jerry Jeudy can do that. Like he can run some deep stuff. He's more apt to work underneath with his short area quickness and stuff like that. You need a legitimate deep threat. And Tyler Scott, 67-68, absolutely. Bring him on home. Let's go. I'm here for that. Let's see. Where do we want to go from here? Let's take a look at the chat really fast.
Well, what's another position that the Broncos could use? Edge? That's one that you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah. Edge is a big one here. Let me give you a preamble on this. Obviously, you've got the Randy Gregory situation where commonly injured all the time. He's rarely ever seen the field. This last season, he came back to play just to prove that he could still play, despite suffering through a shoulder injury, and I believe it was a knee injury that he had earlier in the season. Baron Browning has missed a lot of time. We still don't know about Nick Benito, who is a liability in the running game, at least to my experience from watching him on tape. And then Jonathan Cooper, who's a nice developmental piece, but those are your top four guys. You have to get better at the edge. And I'm going to plug a piece that I've got. It's going to drop tonight. Was watching a couple players here that I think actually fit very well with the Broncos, specifically as playing that 7 technique defensive end. Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Zach Harrison. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a defensive end from Kansas State, and Zach Harrison from Ohio State. These guys are high upside players, and they're better in the running game than anything that you have, more reliable in the running game than anything the Broncos have, especially at the depth positions. In the third round, I could see either one of those guys and be very happy with it. Absolutely. Eric, what do you think, man?
Well, I mean, I think there are options on the free agent market, but I think that it's best. I mean, I would like to see another veteran brought in to help kind of shore up the depth of it. Somebody cheap, not overly expensive, who's going to just basically compete for that third or fourth edge spot. But as for a start, I mean, this is an excellent edge class. I mean, there's going through the combine and everything and listening to other people talk about it. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network's draft analyst. I mean, he's sitting there talking like 9-10 guys as top 50 options, and they're not. It's unlikely they all go top 50. Denver's going to have their options. Zach Harrison's one I have my eyes on. I think he's one of the better fits in just terms of his absolute length that he has and as a little bit of versatility that he can bring. Let's see here. Maybe Yaya Diaby, a guy who was impressive at the Senior Bowl and had a really impressive combine coming out of Louisville. KJ Henry is another guy. if you want to go a little bit smaller school, there's Jose Ramirez out of Eastern Michigan, who I can't remember who it was. Somebody tweeted out that there seemed to be a lot of interest at the Shrine Bowl from the Broncos scouts and Ramirez. And I mean, it's such a deep class that there's a lot of guys you can look at. But Zach Harrison, they're sitting right at that early third round. Zach Harrison is one of the guys that I really have my name on or my eye on. I don't think he's done enough to secure himself going earlier than that, even though he can. But he's one of those guys that's just right on that edge there of will he be there, won't he be? And so he's like the number one guy I have, in my opinion, for the Broncos there.
I don't disagree with you on that because I watched Felix Anudike-Uzomah last night, and I did Zach Harrison this afternoon before we went live. And while I like the power that FAU, we'll just go that way, that Felix brings in his lower half, Zach Harrison brings it in his upper half. Like, he's a little bit thin in the lower half, and there's some twitch issues that I have there, but this dude's long, 36.5-inch arms. Like, he's crazy, crazy long, and he uses that length way better than Felix does. He has a little bit more twitch, a little bit more bend than Felix does, and he also has that versatility to drop back into coverage if you need him to. Felix was more of a straight line power guy, whereas Zach Harrison has some bend, some twitch, some burst to him. Definitely unrefined. I think he needs to work on his pass rush plan. But if you want to bring in a guy that, like I said, is incredibly high upside, I think he's a better run defender than Nick Benito is at this particular point, and probably has more upside there as well. Zach Harrison, dude, 67, 68. I'm all the way about that. All the way about it.
Yeah, and seeing a few people talking about Damari Mathis. Corner is another position. I mean,
yeah.
George Payton, we know how he feels about corners and how you can never have enough. Another strong class is the corner class. Maybe it could very well be that the three positions that Denver's really looking at there, obviously a lot depends on how the board falls, but I think ideally they're looking at center, edge, and corner with those 2 third-round picks right there and trying to land at least someone for two of those positions. Julius Brents is a guy that has been linked with Denver pretty often. Keely Ringo has been right there. Mm-hmm. I think Julius Brents, with his combination of size, of length, athleticism, and just his play style, I think that puts him out of range unless Denver somehow gets up earlier. But Keely Ringo, he's the guy who's been falling a little bit because he's made it very clear, even at the combine, it was made very clear. This is an athlete, not a football player at the moment. Mm-hmm. And at the corner position, that is one of those things where we've seen over the last couple of years, teams kind of not necessarily devalue the athleticism, but they're just looking for a little bit more refinement in their players from a technical aspect. And so that could see Ringo fall. Not saying it will, saying it could. And there's a bunch of others. I have a couple of articles up on mileathill.com that talks about corners. Some of them went up today. Riley Moss. There's Jalen Jones. It's going to be his entire rookie season. He'll be 21 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until next month.
Yeah, it's super long, super fluid too. Like that's
decently smooth and fluid. Like he has everything that you want to work with. A lot of technical refinement that needs to be done, but he's still going to be 21 years old while you're working with him. And for the drop-off age of cornerbacks being 30, 31, like you have a long time to sit there and work with him. So I think he'll get, in terms of a football player, he'll get a little overdrafted because of how young he is. But he's one of those guys that he can end up working in the scheme. Like it just he can pick up a lot from Patrick Surtain as well with some of the issues that he has. He's a little weak at. Like I think he would just be a really good fit for the Broncos.
Yeah. What we really need, though, is Deonte Banks to have some kind of off-field something that makes him fall, because that's my freaking dude. And shout out to Marcus Boggins for shouting him out to me a while ago. Deonte Banks, man, you want to talk about long, fluid, press cornerback. Ball skill's probably not there all the way, but like this dude just knows how to play.
Doubt he gets out of the first round.
Oh, he's not going to get out of the top 20. I like, this is wishful thinking for me. Like he has Washington Commanders screaming all over himself. We got Seahawks Gaming jumping in here with the $2 super chat saying, you guys want pick number 5 for Russ? I'll give you Russell Wilson. I'll give you our 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round pick just to get number 5 back, because I want Jalen Carter. Damn it.
You guys,
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate that. You guys have, I mean, there's no doubt about it. You guys have won that trade. And I mean, it would take a lot for Russell Wilson at this point, not just one Super Bowl, I think two, to really balance it back out. When this trade was made, nobody was expecting Denver to give you guys the 5th overall pick. You guys, you fleeced Denver for it so far. I honestly hope the Seattle Seahawks make a good pick for it. That is my wife's team, and it'd be great because Denver traded a 1st-round pick for them a few years ago that turned into Earl Thomas. So that one still stings me too.
I don't. I hope that they do the dumb thing and take Will Levis at number 5 overall and he busts out super hard just to make you guys eat it. Damn it! I'm playing for real though. It's probably gonna be Tyree Wilson. He fits the archetype for the Seahawks. That long, physical, athletic freak of a player that's versatile, that is everything that Pete Carroll likes to put on his defensive ends. Play him as a 3 tech if you want to. Play him as a 7 tech if you want to. He's just going to be the perfect fit for Seattle, and I hate you guys for it. All jokes aside, thank you, Seahawks Gaming, for joining us. We appreciate that, and in all good fun, we appreciate the fact that you get to make fun at our expense. Interior defensive line depth, though, Eric, there's a last one here, just a couple more minutes. I'm not super keen on the interior defensive line. I know that the Broncos need to have somebody that's not Mike Purcell play on the nose, somewhere around the 0-1-2 technique, a guy that can play in the A gaps, hold up as a gap space eater, somebody that can just eat up some double teams, let these linebackers flow. I know that you have your eyes specifically on a guy, and maybe it's changed here a little bit, but Keanu Benton out of Wisconsin, man, he's not specifically a nose tackle, but he has the ability to do that. I'm intrigued by this guy, man. Go ahead and speak on him.
I mean, Benton he's of the small group of really good interior defensive linemen. He's one of them, and he's one of those guys that probably wouldn't be surprised if he goes a little bit earlier, but I have him right there in that early 3rd round range. He's a guy that I think you can do some creative stuff with him and DJ Jones with their play styles a little bit. But if you're looking for a pure nose tackle, someone like Keandre Coburn or Jared Clark out of Texas or Coastal Carolina, respectively. Those are big space-eating interior defensive linemen, big nose tackles. If you want somebody a little bit smaller, Cameron Young out of Mississippi State. He's only like about 310 pounds or so. But, I mean, he's just so strong, and he's able to two-gap so well despite his size, using his length pretty well to sit there and just hold blocks. None of those guys just offer a whole lot as a pass rusher. And that's kind of is what it is when you're looking for a nose tackle.
I knew that you were going to shout out Keandre Coburn. I haven't had the pleasure of watching him yet, but I knew that you were going to go in that direction. A guy that I kind of fell in love with my father-in-law Tony, who's probably going to watch this episode later. Siaki Ika out of Baylor. Let's get into him just a little bit. You want to talk about mammoth of a human being? He's huge, super long too. Not quite as athletic as you like. Exactly. That's the problem. Like, this dude was dynamite in 2021. 2022, absolutely not. He fell off a cliff this last season. There were people that were mocking him. If you go back to summer scouting, there were people mocking him to like the Dallas Cowboys in the tail end of the 1st round. Like, they need to have, that space eating interior defensive lineman, that 0-1 technique, the pure nose tackle. And that's what this kid is. He doesn't play with strength. He doesn't play with length. He doesn't play with physicality. He can get after the quarterback, but man, if you're looking for a flyer on a guy, where would you, take a look at Siaki Ika now? Because you're talking day 3 at least.
I am not a looks like Tarzan plays like Jane fan.
This is true.
I don't know how many times I sat there and facepalmed watching him because of how active he was in trying to avoid contact. He's a massive dude, and you just want to see him play like it, especially against the run. Guy can get after the quarterback, and that seems to be where his interest lies. I'm not a fan of him. I think that he's not for me. For Denver, sure, maybe in the 4th or 5th round, take a flyer on him if he's there. For me, I wouldn't touch him. He's not my kind of guy. I'm talking about, what coaches like and everything. Just a no for me. Before we get out of here, got one last question here. What did you guys do for St. Patrick's Day, or what are you going to do for St. Patrick's Day? I haven't done anything yet. I'm going to go and make some breakfast burritos with my wife for dinner, and I'm going to type up a 10-page essay to send to Scott about the difference between geeks, nerds, and all that.
I'm here for that. So far, I haven't really done much other than indulge a little bit. I won't say in what aspect, but we've got, like I said, we got Reuben sandwiches that I've got to go finish making here in just a minute. Corned beef and cabbage as well. So lots of corned beef. No green beers. I did get some Guinness, so we'll have some Guinness and maybe a shot of Jameson if I have the opportunity to get to that. But no. As we said before, guys, St. Patrick's Day, everybody knows the celebration. Go out and celebrate with your friends. Please celebrate responsibly. Have a safe night. Find a safe ride home. Designated drivers all the way around. Don't do anything stupid. Please, please, please be safe. Take care of yourselves as much as humanly possible.
Yes, definitely.
I got one more for you really fast. We got a Facebook user jumping in here. I don't know the name. Can you break down Jarrett Patterson, Eric?
So this is gonna be really mean. I don't really want to. Again, another one of those guys, not my kind of guy. I'm not sure where he really fits in the NFL. I just consistently seeing him, watching him get demolished a little bit. And then at the Senior Bowl, hoping that he can bounce back a little bit, because not last year, but I think it was 2021. He had a pretty good season, and just really fell off a cliff a little bit. Little bit on the decent size, everything's just decent with him. So maybe you take a round 7 flyer, but other than that, maybe a priority free agent.
I'm not even sure who Jarrett Patterson is, to be honest.
He's an interior offensive lineman for Notre Dame.
Okay. Oh yeah, that rings the bell. Gotcha. Now I've seen a little bit of him, but not enough to really have an opinion on that. So I'll just let Eric's words there kind of wrap us up here. And thank you all for joining us here on the Dev Valley Deep Divers podcast. We appreciate all of your guys' love and support. Make sure you guys please follow us on Twitter. Well, actually, don't follow me right now, because by the way, my Twitter account got hacked. So if you guys are seeing this and you see any tweets from @SandersonMHAs, don't interact with them. I'm working with Twitter account recovery to try to figure out how to get my stuff back, but they've changed my email address and my password account, so I cannot even log into it. No idea what's happening over there. Please do not follow me right now, but do follow Erick Trickel @ErickTrickel. Also for Scott, our wonderful producer running the ones and twos behind the scenes here @ScoutKennedy. Also, guys, while you're at it, please, 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 @Mile High Huddle. It's a great way to get all of your breaking news regarding the Broncos. Again, breaking news, film breakdowns, opinion articles, all of our draft content's going up there right now @Mile High Huddle, and specifically milehighhuddle.com. Everything we're talking about right now, anything Broncos, you're going to find it there. Folks, another great way to support the show and the website in general is mhhmerch.com. That's where you guys get your merch. You get a hat, get yourself a t-shirt, baby onesie if you want a coffee cup, something for your dog, anything for the guys, for the gals, whatever suits your fancy, you're going to find it there. Facebook users, facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. Get in the conversation there as well. Great way to just kind of interact with the community. And guys, if you're not financially able to do so, at the bottom of the screen here, everybody should know. I mentioned it every single time we go live, every time we close the show. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle across all platforms, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you guys get your Mile High Huddle content. Please subscribe to that. Like every video and article you guys see across all of those platforms as well. And if you love it, please share it, guys. Share it out in front of as many people as you possibly can, because without your guys' support, we could not do what we do best, which is cover our Denver Broncos. Now, with that, guys, I do have to say, Eric, any last words, man? Anything you got going on this weekend that's special? Any big plans, anything like that? Or are you just going to be kind of working on your draft stuff?
I'm going to be busy working on draft stuff, but I do have just a couple announcements here in a few weeks, looking at either April 7th or April 14th, looking at having a good friend of the show on the podcast, and Luke Foglaze. I was trying for May 20th, but for some reason Like he has a wedding rehearsal for the next day or something. And then I won't be here for May 20th either. I mean, it's a few ways away. I'll be down there for some weirdo's wedding.
Yeah, Luke Potglaze, Potgoals. Who's this guy? I'm not sure who he is.
There was an old Twitter troll involving his name that I can't say live. That was quite hilarious.
I remember that actually. I did not know this. So he's breaking news not only to the show, but he's breaking news to me. Super stoked to get back in touch with Luke again. It's always fun to have him on here and help us break down whatever we're talking about. I mean, just the insights that he brings. So make sure you guys get your set your calendars for that April 7th, April 14th, somewhere around in there. We'll have Luke back on the show. For me, nothing special. Just going to watch some football, maybe watch some basketball. Hey, Eric, how's your bracket right now?
Perfect. I just have to update it for the latest games.
Likewise, I took your advice. I always have the perfect bracket from now on. I got the Furman upset. I got the Princeton upset. I took Missouri as well. Perfect bracket all the way across.
Did you get the latest upset? Because it looks like Purdue's about to lose. Like, I'll get that one.
See that. I didn't see that. I was watching that game earlier. You want to talk about a team that has no idea how to deal with speed and physicality and aggressiveness? That's freaking Purdue, man. Regardless, cannot wait to have FDU on my bracket as a 16 upsets of 1. Anyways, guys, you all stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy St. Patrick's Day. And like we say, please stay safe. You all, we will see you next time, same place next weekend. And as always, guys,